God, come and learn about Him. Here's the Bible with Pastor Adam.
Alright, I admit, it's a catchy song. Hey guys, welcome back. Welcome back to our weekly Bible reading. Thanks for coming. So, where are we this week? Well, if you remember, last week we were in Genesis chapter 6 through 9. And we were talking about the great flood that God sent into the world to wipe out all of creation because of how wicked and evil people had gotten. But He decided to save one man. Do you remember who that one man was? Noah. Good job. So He saved Noah and his family members, and they built a big ark. This week we're in Genesis chapter 11. So after Noah had parked his big old boat on dry land, God told Noah and his people to repopulate the entire earth because there was no one left. So they made lots and lots of babies. So the world was filled again. Anyway, so this week we're in Genesis chapter 11, now that the world was filled with people again. So, Genesis chapter 11, the Tower of Babel. It was a long time after the great flood, and there were more people on the earth than ever before. They were like a big, big family, and they all spoke the same language. The people went to the east, to the land of Babylon. They had an idea. They said, "Let's make a city here. In the city, we'll build a tower that will go up to heaven, and we'll do it all by ourselves." The people used brick and tar, and every day their tower grew and grew and grew. Very tall. Babylon was a really ancient city that was located in a country that's now called Iraq. And the name of the city means the gateway to the gods. So they built this big, big tower, and then God came down to see the city and the tower that the people had built. It was a grand tower, but something was wrong. The people were working only for themselves, and God had to show them that they would always need His help, and that they would always need to rely on Him if they wanted to succeed. So, God gave every person a different language. So they used to all speak the same language, but now they all speak different languages. And now instead of one word, there were hundreds of different ways to say the same thing. And no one could understand anyone else. The people could not work together anymore, and so they stopped building the city, and they stopped building the tower. And the big family that once was split apart, and the people settled in different parts of the earth. The half-built tower stood alone on the empty land, incomplete and unfinished. It became known as the Tower of Babel. And Babylon was the place where God mixed up the language of all the peoples of the earth. Have you ever heard of that word, Babel? Sometimes we say it in English. It comes from a Hebrew word for confused. In English, babble means to talk too much or to make meaningless sounds that no one can understand. Like maybe your parents have said, "Hey, quit babbling." That comes from the Tower of Babel. So God came down and stopped it. He didn't like what He was seeing. See, the problem was the people thought they could do this extraordinary thing all on their own, and they were only doing it for selfish reasons, so that they would become really awesome or famous, and they thought that they didn't need God to do such awesome and extraordinary things. So, unfortunately, God came down and had to give them a consequence. And he said, no, 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 no. You always need to rely on me. It's interesting, though, because God does like when we're creative and when we use the gifts that he gives us. But he doesn't like it when we think we're better than him or we don't need him. I think that's something for all of us to think about. Next time we do something to impress someone or think we're so great, remember, it was God that gave you the tools that you have to begin with. And so without him, we wouldn't be able to do anything awesome. We should think about that. The Tower of Babel. Anyways, thanks for joining me, guys. See you next week.